2010. Welcome to the very first event. I'm very honored to do that. I'm very excited to see some of you again and some of you for the first time. This is wonderful. But, you know, why are we starting this at the Great Movie Ride? How does the Great Movie Ride theme in to Meriwether Adam Pleasure? How? No, I'm really honest. How? I was hoping you would tell me. No. I've got an answer for that. I've got an answer for that. All right? Most of you are familiar with mannequins on Pleasure Island. According to the Meriwether Pleasure story, mannequins was where Pleasure built his canvases, and he outgrew that and had to move to another building. So that became a warehouse, and in 1931, he rented it out to Invincible Pictures. This is all on the plaque, on mannequin. Rented it out to Invincible Pictures. They made 2 films there. Fighting Devil Dogs of Orlando, which was based on the life of Hathaway Brown. All right, there you go. And they also made a all-talking, all-singing, all-dancing musical called The Blushing Bridegroom, where Pleasure had a small little supporting role. So films were made on Pleasure Island there. Then what happened is, end of 1932, Invincible Pictures moved to Hollywood, California, went out of business. Now, when they moved in 1932, they also put out of business the upholstery company on Pleasure Island, which is Changing Attitudes. And they put it out of business because the seamstresses there were doing interiors for yachts, and there wasn't enough business. But they were able to maintain their business by doing costuming for Invincible Pictures. So if any of you have been in mannequins and you wondered, why is it called mannequins? Why are there mannequins hanging around in theatrical costumes? It's the leftover from Invincible Pictures. That's why it's there. Did guests understand that?
No.
11 out of 10 guests didn't get it at all, all right? I'm glad to see all of us are awake this morning. So what we are doing here is we're experiencing that same time period. We're taking a step back in time into the 30s and the 40s, seeing the films that those adventurers saw in 1937, early 1940s. These are the films that they would have seen. These are the stars that avigators would have flown into the island for special parties. That's why we're here at the Great Movie Ride. Now, let's talk a little bit about that, because the best thing about this, of course, is to learn something where you can go and tell your friends and family, right? And not one of them will say, oh, did you hear that from Jim Korkis? They'll go, oh, how smart and clever you are, right? Grauman's Chinese Theater. This was, the original was built in Hollywood in 1927. It was owned and operated by Sid Grauman, and he had 2 other partners, Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks Sr., which, according to the official Pleasure chronology, they invited Meriwether Adam Pleasure over to Pickfair, which was their home, and Pleasure flew them out to Pleasure Island. So we've got another little connection there. Now, what happened is in the 30s and 40s, movie-going was an immersive experience. You spent your money and you wanted to go into a different world. Sid Grauman, up the block, had already built a theater called the Egyptian Theater. Those of you who have been in Hollywood probably know where that was. So that was done in that style. So now he was going to build one as a Chinese pagoda. And you'll notice that there's red, because in China, red signifies good fortune, good luck. You'll see that there is yellow. Yellow in China is known as, there's gold. Gold in China is known as imperial yellow. It was only supposed to be in those places where there was royalty. So this is going to make you feel more royal. And then of course you see the dragons, and the dragons in China, you'll see them on the copper roof up there, you'll see them on the front, you'll see them over at the side. One of these days when you have enough time, go and try and count how many dragons and see if that has any connection with anything. Dragons in China are mammals, they are not reptiles. That's why they look different, and why dragons in China are good. So that's why you have that. Now in 1927, when they were laying the concrete, before Grauman's Chinese Theater was open, an actress by the name of Norma Talmadge came by and she slipped and her foot went into the cement. Sid Grauman saw this and told Gene Klossner, who was doing all the cement, cover that up, smooth that out. Norma, can you come back tomorrow when we have photographers? And so she came back and then pretended that she had never done this before, slipped again, put her foot in, and that's how that tradition began. Since 1927, there have only been about 200 people who have put their handprints into Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood. There was only one non-celebrity who ever put their hands and footprints into the cement in the forecourt of Grauman's Chinese Theater. Anybody know who that is? Good, because I've earned my dinner then tonight. Grauman's mother, Rosa. So when you go to Grauman's Chinese Theater, if you find one for Rosa Grauman, that's the only non-celebrity that is there. Now, this, of course, is the Hollywood that never was, but always will be. The Hollywood that is not a geographical place on the map, but a state of mind. And again, Disney MGM Studios was designed as a half-day attraction, just like Typhoon Lagoon or Blizzard Beach. Basically, you would go out to the parks in the day, and then in the afternoon you'd finish out the day by going to a half-day attraction. Or you'd start the day at a half-day attraction and then go to the parks after that. So Disney MGM Studios is the same amount of acreage as Disneyland, and was designed just like Disneyland, where you have a main street. The main street here is Hollywood Boulevard, and it leads to a castle, and the castle here is Grauman's Chinese Theater. So that's where that design came from, and then you had a spoke in the shape of a Mickey head out there right in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater, where you would then spoke out into different areas, just like at Disneyland. Now, the Grauman's Chinese Theater here is unique on Disney property because we always talk about forced perspective. We always talk about using sort of percentages, like on the buildings on Main Street. This is full size. This is the exact size of Grauman's Chinese Theater. In fact, the Disney Imagineers went and got the architectural plans by Meyer and Holler, who were the ones who built Grauman's Chinese Theater. That copper roof up there is real. It weighs 22 tons. It had to be built separately on the ground, and they had to have a gigantic crane lift it up and put it on top there for that to happen. However, we're in the perfect place right now because there's one thing that is completely different and wrong. Except for the fact that if you've been to Grauman's Chinese Theater in the last 10, maybe 15 years, they made that same change. But Disney made that change in 1989. There is one thing that is wrong.
Oh, tell us, Jim. We listened to most of what you said. We laughed.
I wonder what it is, Jim.
Well, you're standing against it. It's the ticket booth.
Ah.
The ticket booth wouldn't be at the side. When Grauman's Chinese Theater was built, it was smack dab in the middle. But Disney couldn't do that because that's blocking the entrance. That's blocking the view. So it's moved over here. So it's the exact same height. It's the exact same design. It's just scooted over here to the side. About 10, 15 years ago in Hollywood, they got rid of the main ticket booth because they now have ticket booths over to the side with the electronic stuff and all that they can get done with that. Now, in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater are the guardian lions. They're also known as the Fu dogs, all right, F-O-U. Now, Fu actually refers to the supernatural, the spirit world. And so, for instance, the term UFO did not come into, and flying saucers did not come into effect until the 50s. In the 40s, when you had American fighter pilots flying in China, and they saw things that they couldn't, recognize or identify, they called them Foo Fighters. So that, if you've ever heard that band, that's where Foo Fighters come from, is that. Now, again, there's both male and female. And usually I drag people over there and say, well, tell me the difference between male and female there. I'll tell you right now, because we are going to get a big picture of everybody, but there's some other things to share, and there's some other discoveries as adventurers that you're going to make in a second. The difference between the male and the female is look at the paw. The male has his paw on the royal ball of authority. The female has hers on her baby upside down and is holding it there. So unless you look carefully, you don't see that. But that's out in front of a lot of Chinese restaurants, so you can use that to win yourself a Chinese dinner with your friends when you're out there, okay? Now, out here, they also did handprints. The last handprint that was done out here was in 1999. That doesn't mean that that's the last one that was installed, however. In fact, in a moment, after we get our big picture, we're going to go on an adventure.